Tonight, you're not going to a battlefield. You're waking up in one. So dim the lights. Let the fan hum. Breathe in, exhale, and prepare to be quietly dragged into the dying lungs of the Roman Republic. Forget the polished statues and toga parties. This isn't the Latin class fantasy of laurel wreaths and noble speeches. This is the Rome of betrayal, bread riots, starvation rations, suicide executions, and marching across half the world with a foot fungus you've named after your cousin. At the center of it all, there's a man. Gaius Julius Caesar. He isn't a god yet. He's not even a dictator, not officially. Right now, he's just a dangerously smart workaholic with debts, enemies, and a very loyal army that's willing to kill on credit. You'll hear his name screamed in the Senate and whispered in the slums. He'll offer you grain, jobs, future, and somehow, while you're clapping for him, the Republic will quietly die behind you. So pull your blanket tighter and settle in. Because tonight, we're not just watching Caesar win a civil war, you're going to live through it. One brutal day at a time. You wake up to shouting again. Not the fun kind. No parties here, no poetry. Just the usual mix of drunken arguments, mule carts, and one guy down the road coughing like he's trying to remove a lung with sheer willpower. You are a Roman citizen, which sounds impressive, until you realize it doesn't come with perks. No villa, no slave staff, just a one-room flat that smells like boiled onions and someone else's disappointment. You own exactly 2 tunics, 1 cracked cup, and a very opinionated rat that refuses to leave your grain sack. You're not a senator. You're not a gladiator. You're not even particularly patriotic. You're just a tired man with sandals worn so thin you can read Latin through the soles. Your teeth ache, your back aches, and now, as if fate wasn't cruel enough, your republic is collapsing. The Senate, that sacred body of old men yelling at each other in togas, is in full meltdown. Half of them support Pompey the Great, Rome's military darling turned paranoid landlord. The other half are too scared to pick a side, and Caesar is coming home. Not quietly and not alone. He's got legions, real ones. Veterans from Gaul's seasoned killers who've spent the last decade turning northern barbarians into statistics. He's got charisma, too. Enough to make poor men fight for him, rich men fear him, and poets write love letters to his eyebrows. You remember when he left for Gaul. Back then, he was broke, ambitious, and talking a lot about the people. Now he's marching south like Rome owes him back pay. And maybe it does. He's got victories. He's got popularity. He's got debts the size of Sicily. But mostly, he has momentum. And that's terrifying. Pompey, bless his ancient ego, says he'll defend the Republic. He's making speeches about liberty, tradition, the rule of law, all while quietly packing a go-bag and bribing his way out of town. His troops are scattered. His confidence is brittle. He's betting on legality. Caesar's betting on speed, and you're caught between slogans and swords. Both sides claim they're saving Rome. Neither side knows your name. You're just one more body that might get conscripted, taxed, trampled, or forgotten. If Pompey wins, maybe things go back to how they were, which for you means endless labor and watered-down wine. If Caesar wins, who knows? Maybe you get land. Maybe you get work. Maybe you get stabbed by accident during a street riot. Possibilities are endless. The news comes like a whisper, then a scream. Caesar has crossed the Rubicon. It's a shallow river, barely ankle deep, but politically, it's a chasm. A general entering Italy with an army is treason. And Caesar did it anyway, calmly, deliberately, like a man tossing a lit torch into a haystack. Alia iacta est, he said. The die is cast, which, in modern terms, roughly translates to, you're screwed either way. Rome is now a chessboard soaked in olive oil and ambition, and you're the pawn they keep forgetting to move. You go back to sleep that night, but you don't rest, because war is coming, and whether you pick a side or not, the side will soon pick you. You didn't hear Caesar coming. You felt him. One day your streets full of panicked tax collectors shouting about loyalty to Pompey. The next, it's lined with soldiers eating figs, flirting with the locals, and polishing their helmets like they're settling in for spring. No siege, no screaming, just marching boots and a calm declaration. Rome is mine now. Caesar doesn't wait. He doesn't ask. He doesn't even break stride. He storms Italy like it owes him money. To be fair, it kind of does. Unpaid soldiers, unsettled debts, loyalty bought on credit. This isn't just a civil war. It's collections day. You're a baker in Capua yesterday. You were kneading Pompey's flour, cursing the grain tax, and praying the rats didn't chew through your apron again. Today, Julius Caesar himself walks into your stall, takes a loaf of barley bread, nods approvingly, and says, "For Rome." You don't argue. You also don't charge him. The thing is, cities aren't resisting. They're surrendering faster than you can lace your sandals. Not because they love Caesar, but because they fear him a little less. No fires, no pillaging, just messages from Caesar's men. Submit peacefully, and you'll be fed. Refuse, and well, no one's tested that option yet. You're not sure if it's mercy or marketing, but it's working, fast. Town after town opens its gates. Mayors switch sides like it's a sport. Statues of Pompey are quietly misplaced. Meanwhile, Pompey is doing something very un-Pompey-like. He's panicking, see? He wasn't supposed to lose Rome. He had the Senate, the Navy, the legal authority, and most of the elite. Caesar was the outlaw, the invader, the man with red banners and unfinished debts. But panic doesn't care about paperwork. Pompey glances south, sees Caesar's legions approaching at twice the expected speed, and does the Roman equivalent of flipping a table and bolting Rome the capital. The beating heart of the Republic is now held by roughly no one. When Caesar walks in, it's not a glorious battle. It's more of a very dramatic key handoff. The Senate is already gone, dragging their togas behind them, muttering about exile and boat fares. The treasury's been emptied. The city guards have resigned. The only people left are the old, the drunk, and a few pigeons who now outrank half the government at one point. Caesar walks into the Senate house and finds it guarded by a janitor and two confused chickens. That's not a metaphor. That's your leadership now. Still, Caesar doesn't gloat. He doesn't crown himself. He doesn't start executing people in the forum. He just moves in like a man. Reclaiming a rental, he declares himself consul. Again, orders the grain ships to dock, cancels some debts, starts working. You hear it in the markets. Not Caesar the tyrant, not Caesar the traitor, but Caesar the man who got things moving again. And that's the terrifying part. He doesn't need to burn Rome to the ground. He just walks in, feeds it, and makes it love him for it. You're still baking bread. But now you're not just feeding soldiers. You're fueling a revolution, and the scariest thing, it's starting to feel like it might work. It's official. You're no longer a baker, a blacksmith, or whatever miserable job you once held in Italy. Now you're a soldier, a legionary in Julius Caesar's army. Congratulations, your salary is overdue. Your boots are full of holes, and your feet smell like someone drowned a goat in vinegar. But you're part of history now. Pompey has fled across the sea, dragging the Senate and their unpaid bills with him. He's got ships, grain stores, gold, and just enough dignity to pretend he's still in charge. Caesar, by contrast, has you, and about 20,000 men with trench foot, sunburned shoulders, and no plan for how boats work, crossing to Greece. It's a logistical nightmare. First, there's the cold. It clings to your ribs like mold. Then the boats, leaky, creaky, and overloaded with soldiers, stacked like olives in a jar. You share a space the size of a cupboard with a coughing gall, 3 bags of weevil-infested barley, and one very judgmental cat someone definitely smuggled aboard. You're lice-ridden, seasick, eating something called salted meat, judging by the texture, used to be a rope. The Mediterranean doesn't smell like adventure. It smells like regret, fish guts, and broken promises. You land somewhere near Epirus, already dreaming of going home, which, of course, no longer exists. Pompey, meanwhile, is waiting. He's dug in, well-fed, well-funded, and very smug. He controls the coast, the supply lines, the high ground, and the senators. Caesar controls you. And whatever's left of your optimism, you march toward Dyrrhachium. You're told it'll be quick. It is not. The siege is long, the food is non-existent, and the weather is either too hot, too cold, or both. You sleep in a trench dug with your bare hands, under a tent that smells like wet socks and existential dread. The only thing holding this army together is stubbornness. And Caesar's speeches, you lose the battle. Not gloriously, not heroically, just painfully. Caesar's men attack too soon, get flanked, and nearly routed. The line collapses. Men scream. You trip over a pile of armor, nearly get trampled, and only survive because you drop your shield and play dead under a horse carcass. The worst part, Caesar's still smiling, not because he's delusional, because he knows something you don't, or at least pretends to, that this loss, this cold, wet, miserable failure, is part of the plan. He paces through the mud, calm as a marble statue, telling the men, "We'll get them next time." Next time, you haven't eaten in 2 days. You've been drinking boiled puddle water and eating your belt. But when Caesar speaks, something strange happens. You believe him, not because he's right, but because he's convincing, because he looks just as tired as you, because he eats the same rat jerky, limps through the same frostbitten mud, and still carries himself like the gods. Owe him a favor. He's not a king. Not yet, but he talks like Rome will be his, eventually. You're exhausted, you're half-starved. You can't remember the last time you didn't itch. But when he says, "This is temporary," you nod. Either you're buying into destiny, or you're hallucinating. Hard to tell through the hunger haze. This is it. You're standing in a wide, sun-blasted field, somewhere near Pharsalus, knee-deep in goat dung and fear. The morning haze is still rising off the dry grass and across the plain. You can see Pompey's camp, massive, organized, glittering. He has the numbers, the cavalry, the senators, the lunch. You have Caesar, and a headache that started 2 weeks ago and hasn't gone away. Since you ran out of vinegar to drink, Caesar's men are outnumbered, nearly to Pompey's army is fresh, well-fed, and led by Roman nobles who still think wars are won by yelling charge in Latin with good posture. You're not fresh. You've eaten nothing but cracked grain and boiled weeds for 4 days. You slept next to a man who died in the night and no one noticed for 12 hours. But Caesar walks the line like he always does. Calm, precise, quietly radiating that unshakable energy that makes you think he knows what he's doing. So maybe you don't need to. He doesn't give a long speech. Just 3 words. Strike at the heart. Pompey opens with cavalry textbook. He flanks left hard. His horsemen charge like thunder across the field, ready to smash through Caesar's line like they've rehearsed it. Which they have. But Caesar has something waiting. It's subtle at first. A feigned retreat. Your front line pulls back, slow and steady, like they're scared. That's the bait, and then snap. Spearmen rise from the dust. Hidden reserves, silent, still, terrifying. Pompey's cavalry rides straight into a meat grinder. Screams, the kind you don't forget. The line breaks. Not yours, there's the rest. Of the field descends into chaos. Dust, blood, shouting. Everything becomes noise and movement. You lose your formation, your breath. At one point, you're swinging your sword at someone you think might be your cousin. It doesn't matter anymore. You don't fight for glory. You fight because your legs are moving and your arms haven't quit yet. At some point, you trip, fall, into a ditch. Land face first in something unspeakable. You stay down. Pretending to be dead seems like a decent plan. By the time the shouting stops, the dust clears, and you dare to lift your head. It's over. Pompey's army is broken. Men are throwing down weapons, sobbing, running into the hills barefoot. Senators are disguised as slaves, begging not to be recognized. Caesar walks the field like a man touring his inheritance. Calm, almost bored. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't cheer. He just nods. Like this is exactly what was supposed to happen. You're alive. Somehow your ears are ringing. Your legs are jelly. There's a gash on your arm you don't remember getting. You look around and realize the Republic just died. Not with a vote, not with a law, with a man named Pompey fleeing for his life, and another man, the one you now follow, standing in the wreckage, unchallenged. Rome isn't a debate anymore. It's a one-man plan, and you're in it, whether you like it or not. You thought the war was over. You survived Pharsalus, limped off the battlefield, ate something resembling soup, and dared just briefly to imagine going home. Bad idea, because Caesar isn't done. He's chasing Pompey, and Pompey, he's fleeing east like a senator late to lunch, with his last loyal ships and a plan held together by fear and bad decisions. Where does he go? Egypt. Why? Because it's rich, chaotic, and theoretically neutral. Also, Pompey once babysat one of the pharaohs when they were a toddler or something. He's hoping for a warm welcome. Maybe a handshake. Maybe even a fresh robe. What he gets is a sword to the throat. Turns out, Egypt is run by teenage royalty, locked in a family feud that makes your drunk uncles look reasonable. Ptolemy the 13th, age 13. Ambition 30, decides to impress Caesar by solving his Pompey problem, preemptively, so they kill him, decapitate him, put his head in a basket. You arrive in Alexandria just in time to see it. The severed sand-dusted head of your enemy, delivered like room service. You feel weird about it. Not sad, exactly. Not relieved either. Just a hollow sort of nausea. This isn't victory. This is a loose end tied off with blood and bad taste. Caesar, he doesn't cry. But he doesn't smile either. He reportedly weeps. Maybe sincerely, maybe either way, it's not the reaction the Egyptians expected. Because now he's mad. They killed a Roman consul. Without asking. That's not diplomacy, that's bad manners. And just when it couldn't get stranger, she enters. Cleopatra, she's somewhere between 21 and mythological. Witty, ruthless, brilliant in 5 languages, possibly poisonous. She's been hiding, exiled by her brother husband, don't ask. And now she's smuggled herself into Caesar's palace, rolled in a carpet like a dramatic gift basket of charm, ambition, and long-term consequences. You see her once from a distance. She walks like she owns the building, like she knows exactly where this is going. Caesar does not send her away. He stays for weeks, then months. You, meanwhile, are building a fort in Egypt, in the sand, under siege. Alexandria catches fire. The locals riot. Someone throws a spear at your soup. You're ducking arrows one day, hauling bricks the next. All while trying to figure out if this is still about politics, or if your general is just really into Cleopatra. Warm baths and figs. Caesar insists it's about restoring order. You're not so sure. There's a lot of lounging, a lot of wine, a lot of intense political discussions that happen to end in bedrooms at night. You wonder, did we follow a man who wanted to save the Republic, or a man who just really enjoys royal company and indoor plumbing? Either way, you're in Egypt now, Pompey's dead. The Republic is still dead. And your commanding officer is suddenly very tan and very distracted. So you sharpen your sword, swat at Nile mosquitoes, and wait. Because history is being written in silk sheets now. And you're still sleeping. In a ditch. You're finally home. You step off the ship with sunburned skin, flea-bitten legs, and a vague hope that maybe, just maybe you can get back to normal. A hot meal, a roof, a life without sand in every fold of your body. But Rome isn't home. Anymore, not really. It's fractured, bankrupt, cracked like an overbaked loaf of bread. The Forum smells like fear and overdue taxes. Half the city is still loyal to Pompey's memory. The other half is just loyal to whoever hands out free grain. And Caesar, he walks back into the city like he owns it. Because now, he sort of does. He's no longer fighting a war. He's finishing a project. Himself within weeks, he starts passing laws like a man's speedrunning dictatorship. Grain reforms, debt forgiveness, citizenship extensions, land for veterans. He even fixes the calendar. Yes, the actual calendar. Apparently, the priests had been fudging leap years for political reasons. So now March shows up when it's supposed to, and February finally gets told to sit down. You're told this is all for your benefit, and sure, you get a few new holidays. Bread lines are shorter, the streets are cleaner. There's even a new basilica going up. But somewhere along the way, you also lose your voting rights. You don't remember exactly when. It wasn't announced. Just quietly moved to the bottom of the priority list, behind Public Works and Caesars. Newest title, Dictator for Life. You try to speak up once, nothing dramatic, just a grumble in the wine stall, something about tyranny, and maybe too many statues of the same guy. The man next to you stares a little too long, doesn't blink. The next day, he's in the Senate, wearing a clean toga and smiling too much. You say nothing after that, because people who question Caesar tend to disappear, or resign, or get politely stabbed in a side alley by a man who says nothing. Personal, while adjusting his belt knife, the Senate still meets. But it's not the Senate. Not really. It's like the ghost of the Senate wearing a costume. A plush, stuffed animal version of what it used to be. They still vote, but only after Caesar has. Sometimes they argue, out of habit. But it's quieter now. Less thunder. More nodding, and when Caesar stands in the Curia, they rise. Not because of tradition, because he expects it. Rome isn't on fire. It's calm, and that's more terrifying than chaos. Because you realize, the war didn't end. It just put on a toga, and now it smiles at you from marble pedestals. You're home, but home has changed its name. By now, Caesar has won. Everything the wars are over. The parades are endless. The statues are multiplying like stray cats. You march in them sometimes. The parades, not the statues. Wearing a borrowed tunic and pretending not to limp. You cheer. You throw laurel branches. You chant his name with a throat still sore from sand and smoke. His face is on your coins, your temples, your calendar. He's not king, though he says that a lot. Loudly when someone offers him a crown in public, he waves it away like a bad smell. 3 times, in the forum, on stage, with witnesses. It's theater, you know it. He knows it. Everyone claps anyway. But behind the curtain, the crown is already on his head. It just hasn't been officially announced yet. He assi dictator perpetu, now dictator in perpetuity. That's Latin for you don't get a say anymore. You don't mind much. You're tired. You've stopped caring about titles. You just want warm food, a place to sleep, and the possibility of someday brushing your teeth without using vinegar and a stick. And besides, life seems better. The grain shipments run on time. The streets aren't on fire. You haven't been stabbed in weeks, but the rumors are swirling. Senators whisper in corners. The ones who used to grovel now grit their teeth. Brutus is pacing more than usual. Cassius has that twitch again. You can feel it in the air. Something's coming. The Republic isn't gone. Not entirely. It lingers like a ghost. A whiny, self-important ghost that won't stop moaning about tradition and liberty and checks and balances. Caesar tries to ignore it. He plans another campaign. Persia, maybe, or Parthia. Something far enough away that it feels like progress, not paranoia. He wants more. Not because he needs it, because he can. He's won every battle, conquered every rival, outlasted every betrayal, except this one, the one growing inside his own ambition and yours. You survived the war. Somehow, you've got all your limbs. Most of your teeth. Your tunic smells like smoke, but at least it's your tunic. You're a citizen of peace now, which just means you'll die in the next civil war started by the next man who wants to be Caesar. Because here's the truth, the Republic didn't collapse in a single day. It rotted, slowly, vote by vote, reform by reform, sword by sword, and then suddenly it was gone. No funeral, no eulogy, just a shrug, a parade, and a man wearing too much red. You didn't mean to be part of history. You were just trying to make it to next week, but now you live in an empire, and empires don't sleep, they just wait.